please subscribe and don't forget to press the bell icon to get notified whenever we upload a new video.
Welcome back. Counting down to pre-open, 45 points higher on the SGX Nifty. The technically about 70-75 higher because we have to take into account yesterday we were trading. So the level is important. 11,004 Nifty for the Nifty futures. SP Tulsian is also with us from sptulsian.com. Mr. Tulsian, good morning. We've been discussing Shriram Transport for last 15-20 minutes. I wanted your thoughts also on the stock because when this news surfaced the first time, we had the stock go down to all the way down to almost 1,000, 1,050. If it goes there again, is it a buying opportunity?
Yes, Anuj, definitely it's a buying opportunity. In fact, it's difficult to take a call whether the SVL reference to insolvency should be taken positive. But maybe, sometimes market is so confused and, scared that they may see it as a negative as well. Because if you really see the situation, that the guarantee portion, that's the only negative, and that has largely been having factored in. And if it goes to the insolvency, then probably the fate of the guarantor will also be different, because there are judicial pronouncement in that respect, whether the guarantor will really be holding the entire liability on their head or not. So I will view the SVL reference to insolvency as a positive for Shriram Transport, but for any reason, possible that the stock may behave negative, but that's the level to enter into because if you really take a call, company is in a position to post an EPS of closer to anywhere between 105 to 110, and that is seen quite positive. And in fact, the old vehicle financiers, they are the largest old truck financiers in the country, are not seen getting in any way affected. So yes, this is giving a buying opportunity if it corrects maybe by about 50, 60, 70 rupees or any knee-jerk reaction.
Okay. Mr. Tulsian, good morning. I wanted your thoughts on Federal Bank as well. There's news that the margin calls on the credit facilities availed by both the MD and the CEO have gotten hit. This was on the stock options that were allotted to him. You think there could be a big negative impact on the stock this morning, and how do investors deal with this news flow?
See, Lata, first let me sorry, Sonia. First, let me take on this on the other side, that sometimes we see these ESOPs, really playing very negative for the health of the employees and all that. Either on a lighter side, I say that they get lot many, they eat more than what they can chew, or they are landed, with the tax liability and all that. And in that case, obviously, these all executives, they have to borrow money to avail this, or to allow the ESOPs to get vested. And this is just an unfortunate event that because of the flood, these things have happened. And maybe because employees cannot just, and that to a CEO and the MD of the bank cannot maneuver by taking the, and it's good that they've taken this in its stride, that the margin call got triggered and their stock got sold, which they've offered as a finance as a loan to subscribe to the vested ESOPs, having given to them, because the tax liability also takes a toll whenever those things happens. So in fact, I'm again not seeing this as this is just a one-off case, where, as I've said, that probably the quantum is seen to be quite high. I'm not saying that the quantum should get reduced of the top CEOs and all that. That's the policy of each employer, but that has seen just as a one-off event. And in fact, again, in case of Federal Bank, also, we will be taking this correction as a buying opportunity.
Okay, just about 10 seconds left for pre-opening. Sanjeev, mid-cap IT, you reckon time to take some profit home after the massive run that we have seen?
Correct, and we've been of the view, and we've been asking all clients to lighten up on IT. We think this proxy of weaker rupee is not played out on margins from the time it's been 45 rupees. And this is a myth, and I think it's an opportune time to sell IT, particularly mid-cap, and get into pharma whole hog. So pharma, insurance and power are our three dark horses, and we are buying on every decline and replacing IT with pharma for 2019.
Okay, by the way, the currency has opened at 71.70. On Wednesday at 1:30, we were staring down 73, and from that to 71.70 now, it's been one downward move or upward move, let's put it that way, for the currency from the rupee point of view. 49 paise straight away, and this is after an intraday move of almost 70 paise that we had seen on Wednesday. So the markets, wants to take cognizance of this meet tomorrow You don't know what will come out. If anything will come out, but just the statement is enough. We had a one-way move. Some part of the move was okay. Towards the end, I think the move from 71 to 73 was pure speculation and just bears running, amok, because there was no fear, and it almost every morning the game in town was to just go and short the rupee, and by the end of the day take home a large part of money. I think that's changed, and how on Wednesday and also today morning, with just a statement that there's going to be a meet tomorrow. Nothing else. Nothing has come out. Nothing. It's just that just to say that look, we're watching. That's enough.
And you know what? 72.91, I think, was the record low, right?
Yes.
I mean, from there, the rupee has recovered quite a bit over the last many days.
Depreciation is okay, Sonia, for the currency, but in a reasonable manner. From 65 to 73, it was a one-way. It almost
fell
like
off a cliff. Yeah,
it was like a mid-cap stock. I think 70 was perhaps okay baked in. But after that, it just became a speculator's play.
Also, we must go back to the link that Shireen had done, where the government has said that there's no need for a knee-jerk reaction on the rupee. The economic fundamentals are strong. Until the rupee stabilizes, fiscal prudence is crucial. So they're trying to say that they may not come out with any measures. So tomorrow may just be a review meeting. I mean, there may not be any great measures, so don't really bank on that.
Exactly. In fact, let's discuss that. We have Ray Faris now joining us. This crucial meeting, of course, tomorrow. Ahead of that, we've seen this move on the currency. Ray Faris from Credit Suisse is with us. Ray, good morning.
Good morning.
Your thoughts on the big action that we have seen in the currency market on Wednesday in the second half, and today the opening looking quite strong?
Well, there have been a series of events that have helped the rupee. First, the government, as you know, and you've been discussing, came out to say that it would potentially take measures to try to strengthen the currency, or at least control the currency. And of course, there's this meeting this weekend. The RBI had been intervening before that, and it made clear that the government had requested that the RBI intervene more aggressively. So that in and of itself had sort of put a cap on the currency. I think the other things that are absolutely crucial are what happened in Europe overnight. First, that Turkey surprised markets hawkishly by raising interest rates 625 basis points, more than markets were expecting, in order to try to reestablish a sense of credibility over inflation. And that's helped to stabilize and appreciate very slightly the Turkish lira, which was part of what was driving stress through emerging markets. Equally important, the ECB delivered on expectations for an end to its QE program and some degree of signaling that it would increase interest rates in 2019, even if it is in the second half. And that's helped to rally the euro. And quite simply, when the euro rallies against the dollar, it tends to lead the dollar to weaken against emerging market currencies, which is exactly what's happening. So I think markets will look for some new measures coming out of the government this weekend. That's kind of the guidance. And if the government doesn't deliver on that, then that would be something of a sort of blow to kind of credibility, and the rupee would probably re-weaken early next week. The government probably does need to take some measures.
So what could those intervention measures be, Ray? I mean, not just to ease the burden of a weaker rupee, but also the burden of higher fuel prices. I mean, fuel prices are at record highs in India. The government has ruled out a cut in taxes. They've said they have no bandwidth to lose any revenues, in an election year. So for the rupee particularly, what do you think those intervention measures could realistically be?
Okay, well, fuel prices aren't high just in India. Fuel prices are high everywhere, and the idea that India should have special fuel prices or subsidized fuel prices is probably a pretty bad one. So on that front, the government's right not to do anything there. What could the government do? Well, first and foremost, quite simply, the central bank could increase interest rates. Not so much because inflation is high, although core inflation is high. Core inflation, I estimate, is about 4.9%, above the 4% that the RBI is trying to target. But simply to reinforce credibility in the inflation targeting regime. Indonesia has done a pretty good job of that. RBI has done some hikes. They could do a bit more. Another thing the government could do is another FCNR type of issue. It would be a bit more expensive today than in the past, but India's problem is it has a current account deficit and even a basic balance deficit. That's after taking net FDI into account. And it needs portfolio inflows, and it just hasn't been getting those. So the government needs to generate some new inflows, and one way to do that would be through some sort of borrowing activity, particularly from offshore Indian money. The government could also take further steps to try to reduce the current account deficit. One type of action would be to increase tariffs, particularly on luxury goods, say gold, jewelry, some other luxury goods. Those would be kind of the mainstream things they could do. More intervention. One way to do that in a roundabout way is that the RBI could reopen a special window for the oil companies to buy foreign exchange from the RBI. Let's be clear about that. That's just simply intervention. It's nothing special. It's just kind of roundabout, takes them out of the market. There are a few other things they could do, but to my mind, those are the mainstream, most likely types of actions.
All right, Ray, we leave it there. Thanks a lot for joining us. So that's the currency, and it's getting stronger. In fact, that first tick, there was some attempt to perhaps buy the dollar. That hasn't worked out, and once again we are at the morning low. 71.70 is where we opened, went to 71.76, 77 thereabout, but now back to 71.71. And if we go back below 71.70, interesting to see how things move from here. So that's of course on the dollar rupee. The pre-opening rates are also of course in, and on expected lines, the Nifty has settled 73 points higher. That's mirroring the SGX Nifty. 11,443 is what you have. 240 points higher is what you have on the Nifty Bank, and about 220 points higher is what you have on the Sensex at this point in time. HPCL, BPCL, IOC are among the top gainers. State Bank of India, Bajaj Finance, these are some names. ICICI Bank, Maruti Suzuki, and of course rupee strength means the recent IT move is stalling a bit, so HCL Tech and Infosys are slightly on the lower side. In the broader market, RCF is up about 16%. Is this land issue, but be careful here. It's happened so many times in the past. Don't want to perhaps take aggressive bets here, but for whatever it's worth, 16% higher. And Spark is up 6%, Sonia, in trade right now.
Okay, well, a couple of more stocks that perhaps our viewers would want to look at. Sun Pharma and Spark both. Spark you mentioned. Sun Pharma is now one of the big Nifty gainers, up about 2.5%. Shriram Transport should also come up for you. I think the first tick on Shriram Transport is on the downside, down almost about 3% there. And then you have Federal Bank, because of those margin calls getting triggered. There's some, okay, it's still in the green, a tad bit in the green. So no major sell-off is what you're seeing in Federal Bank. But our guests are still with us. Prakash Gaba, on Shriram Transport, what would the call be? I mean, there's fresh bad news there. How would you trade it?
Well, Sonia, looks like Shriram Transport is weak, and perhaps we can see a slight around 1050 zones. I would say that 1200 could be a stop. Give some time and space. 1050 is possible in Shriram Transport.
Okay. Mr. Tulsian, I wanted your thoughts on how to approach Sun Pharma. I mean, that stock has gone from 460 to 650, if you map it since the month of May. There's now incremental positive news there about this eye drug Zelpros getting the US FDA approval. For a long-term investor at 660, how does the risk-reward look?
See, Sonia, in fact, maybe in this week itself, we have said that, once the stock corrects to a level of 630, 635, that makes a very good entry point. And we have seen the stock correcting to a level of 620 on Wednesday, and, that was the very good entry point. And yes, with the launch of this hypertension drug, that is seen positive, and I think the stock seen having corrected and have, the weak hand seen having exited. But again, the 665, 670 probably may not makes a good entry point, because it has already risen from low. It has corrected from 675 to 675, 680 to 625, 630. But I think that maybe one should wait in spite of the positive news, because what will happen now, we will be seeing the renewed buying coming back into the consumption and the private sector bank and maybe the finance stock, and the major funds will get diverted. So maybe because of this rupee weakness, which may not, rupee strengthening further now, having started strengthening from here, you may see some kind of pause. I'm not taking a negative bias on pharma stocks, but there may be some kind of pause to be seen on IT and pharma stocks going forward, and more focus on the consumption-led and the private sector bank and finance stocks going forward.
Okay, all right. Well, we have 4 more minutes to go and looks like the market is in a good mood this morning. In fact, maybe some more buying ahead of that, Prime Minister's review meeting tomorrow. Sanjeev, from a market standpoint, should we have high expectations at all? I mean, as of now, it is expected to be just a review meeting, just talking about, the macro indicators, etc. Would you keep your hopes high for any kind of interventions to stem the rupee, any measures, etc.?
Well, no, Sonia, I think the best thing is that at least the government has stood up and talked up the rupee. In old times, I'm not old, 30 years in the market. In the 90s, it was all about how you could talk up the currency. You didn't have to actually physically come and reiterate. But at least come and show some confidence in a currency which has arguably the third largest reserves in the world. Yeah. And secondly, I think the action from the government would be proactive. Now, whether they hint at an NRI deposit or a rate cut, that is the finance minister's prerogative. I don't see that happening. All I would say is it will be a good talk, and that talk up is what is seeing strength return to the rupee.
Yes, I think that is really hitting the nail on the head. Just saying that we're watching is enough to bring it down from 73 to 71, 74. Manisha Gupta is here for a quick roundup of all the commodity market action. Manisha, good morning.
Morning, Anuj, and thank you so much for that. Well, it's the crude oil prices which have been very, very volatile. And this week, we've seen prices hit a 4-month high and then a 2% correction that we saw in the markets yesterday. We seem to be clawing back from those kind of lows, but there's just so much in the international markets to take cognizance of. One, of course, it is the IEA making statements that the crude global oil demand will hit 100 million barrels per day in coming 3 months. And that, of course, continues to support. The hurricane season is all until the 30th of November. That would continue to add premium. And then there, of course, are enough and more supply concerns coming in from OPEC. We also have seen the U.S. crude production plateau around 11 million barrels. The last week's production has been 10.9. So we haven't actually made any higher highs when it comes to production. On the other side, while, of course, there are supply concerns, the global trade tensions could be putting some demand pressure as well, the depreciating emerging market currencies, and the reason that would lead to higher import bills for many of the consuming countries, including India, is something to keep an eye on. But, most of the experts that we have been talking to do say that even as India's petrol and diesel prices are at an all-time high and we have seen a lot of currency reaction, they do not expect India's dependence on global imports to decline in any sense. They actually are looking at 6 to 8% of a demand growth to continue per annum in case of India. So clearly, a consumer country like India, there is no decline in demand that the international markets are anticipating. As far as the prices go, we have seen $80 per barrel as a stiff resistance. If that breaks, that is the only time that we will see more gains here.
Okay, Manisha, thanks a lot for joining us and giving us, all the commodity cues. For now, it looks like the market is going to open well in the green. Sensex up more than 200 points and the Nifty 75 points. So the first take in the market, at least the initial moments look like it could be in the green.
It could be in the green. Let's see if that sustains or not. Let's thank Mr. Tulsian on that note. Mr. Tulsian, thanks a lot for joining us. Of course, we'll talk to you in closing bell. By the way, now you're seeing bit of a move on the rupee being sold into, so just beware of that. If you see 71.74 now again on the currency, so we'll just watch out for that. But for now, just about 20 seconds left for markets to open. Couple of other stocks which look interesting. GSFC. Prakash, quick thoughts on Vedanta. That stock is up 2.5% in pre-opening.
Metals are looking good, I would say that Vedanta can climb to levels closer to 230, 232 zones or even 235 zones. Looks good to me, and a very strong support on metals at 222 zones. So I would look by Vedanta.